Just to introduce myself, I'm Ali Ahmed. I'm one of the founders of GradGurus. This is our first ever event. So we got the team together a few weeks ago and we sort of decided that we're going to go live as soon as possible, as this is the period of time where applications are in full flow, when companies such as the Big Four are handing out offers, giving out the interviews and everything. We just thought that timing wise, it was better for us to get straight, hit the ground running as soon as possible. So that's why we're doing this event today. I'll now go through what we have in store for the event today. So we'll briefly give you a background on GradGurus, who we are, who's on the team, what our mission is, and why we're promoting breaking into the Big Four. Following this, we'll be introducing you to some guest speakers that we have. So we've selected guest speakers who are basically Big Four veterans. They've all had 10 years plus experience working across different firms of the Big Four. We have Zahir Akhtar, who's worked in EY Dubai, so he'll be able to share some insights on how his journey took him to sunnier climates than the UK and especially Manchester, where I'm based. And then we'll also go into a Q&A session towards the end of the call, where you can ask any questions that you have, and we've got the team, we've got the guest speakers that'll still be around to answer those questions, as well as some of the GradGurus team who also have like experience at the Big Four. And also we'll go through how GradGurus can help you on your journey and outline some of the ways that we're able to help you. So the Q&A function operates through Zoom, but you can also send us an Instagram DM and connect with us on Instagram at GradGurus. So just moving on to our mission. So our primary aim is to help you students transition from education into professional careers. The way this sort of came about was through my own experiences at university. I went to the University of Manchester, which is one of the top business school universities in the country. But I realized that there wasn't much support in terms of actually getting into professional careers. Everything was independent. Luckily, I had a bit of a network where I was able to tap into and get some help and call up like a cousin or like a friend and ask them, also, how do I get through this stage of the application? How do I prepare for the interview? And that really was the difference for me getting onto a graduate program versus not having been able to get onto it. So the way we want to support you is through a mixture of different techniques and events. So we have this Breaking Into series. So this is one of the Breaking Into Big Four series. We'll also have like different types of roles, so breaking into investment banking and different areas. But this one specifically is aimed at like getting into the Big Four and the types of roles that the Big Four have. Obviously, because of the pandemic, we're not able to do in-person networking, but that's one of the things that we want to introduce to give you the opportunity to network with professionals who are working in the industry which you desire to have a career in. We also want to have workshops such as like CV review workshops, interview preparation, mock assessment centres, mock interviews, and just general CV and application help. If you want to reach out and are already in the process of an application, you can reach out to GradGurus, where we're able to support students on a first come, first served basis in terms of like any help that you need. We can set up a call, a 1 hour call, maybe longer if you need, and generally take a review of where you are in the process, where you sort of need any help. So yeah, I've got on the slides, you can see the contact details. You have the website, the email address, Instagram, and also WhatsApp. So you can give us a message on WhatsApp. We'll aim to get back to you within 24 hours, depending on the type of demand that we sort of have at that point in time. Now, just moving on to the GradGurus team. So me, I'm Ali Ahmed. I, as I mentioned, worked for EY before. So I worked for EY for 2 years in audit, covering asset and wealth management. I then moved on to JP Morgan, where I'm also, in internal audit. So as you can see, I'm a bit of a career auditor. A little bit sad, I know, but it's one of those roles that I'm one of the few people that probably can say that I enjoy the role. I like the sort of the autonomy that you have as an auditor, the oversight that you have over different areas, and also telling the business that they're doing something wrong and being able to explain how things should be. Below me, I have Ibra Ahmed. So Ibra, I know we have the same surname, but I must point out there that we're not related. We met in university and we also play football together. Ibra is actually also known as Roy Keane due to his tenacious nature. I know he doesn't look like much of a footballer, but he's probably one of the most talented players that we have in Manchester. So Ibra has worked for PwC and Mazars previously. He's a fully fledged chartered accountant, and now he's working for EY, covering audit across a range of industries. Ahmed Estawani is also a fully fledged chartered accountant. He is working for KPMG as an assistant manager with 4 years of experience. His expertise is financial service audit, and he's based in Manchester. Ahmed is also fluent in Arabic, which is pretty cool, I think, as it's quite a difficult sort of language to master. And then moving on to the more entrepreneurial side of the team, we have Hudayfa Jama, who is at the moment a software engineer, runs his own business, producing websites, applications, and all of that kind of tech stuff. As you can see, I'm not fully in tune with the tech world. I must put my hand up and admit that. So Jama's previous experience also includes working for ExxonMobil, one of the big chemical engineering firms in the UK. His expertise includes consultancy and all around just general entrepreneurship. Taqi Hussain is also one of our entrepreneurs. As you can see from the attire that he's selected for his picture, is a little bit different to us accountants. His experience includes fintech, digital marketing. He also runs a podcast, which he can plug later on, I guess, or through the GradGurus social network, and also holds a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship from the University of Manchester. As you can see, I mean, our team at the moment, we have like a mixture of accountants and entrepreneurs. Hopefully this mix gives us the right sort of mix to help you on your career journey. I'm now going to pass over to Ibra, who is going to introduce the guest speakers that we have for today and take it forward.
So just to obviously reiterate Ali's point, welcome to GradGurus. We're here to help you on your journey post-university and get you into those top positions that you want, and just help you at the start of your career. Just to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Zahir Akhtar. He works within the tax team at EY as a transfer pricing manager. Don't worry about these specific names or these specific titles. Zahir will provide an in-depth overview. But just to provide a snapshot of his career so far, he initially joined GT on the tax graduate team before, once he's qualified, he joined PwC as a senior associate working in the corporate tax advisory team. He then moved on to KPMG working as a transfer pricing manager before eventually moving out to his current role as a transfer pricing manager at EY. Interestingly, Zahir works in the Dubai office and he flew out to Dubai yesterday from Manchester. So we're grateful he's able to put in the time for us and be here to join our webcast today. Before I hand over to Zahir, I will request Zahir won't be able to stay for the Q&A at the end. But if you do, for those who are interested in tax, specifically the tax graduate scheme, if you ping any messages in the Q&A function, we'll be able to pick them up separately with Zahir, and hopefully on an Instagram post or some sort of platform we'll be able to kind of answer those questions. So that's everything from me for the time being. I'll hand over to Zahir. Zahir, if I can request you.
Hi everyone, I'm Zahir. I'm a transfer pricing manager here in Dubai. I've been here for about a year now. I'll give you a bit of background about myself. So I was born and bred in Manchester and I went to university there as well, where I did accounting and finance. And then during university, I was quite unsure what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go into accounting or finance or just do something else. Yeah, I started off in a corporate tax team. So I was just doing general corporate tax, UK corporate tax returns, sort of tax advice, but it was the international aspect that I quite enjoyed. And then that's how I sort of found myself in transfer pricing. I won't bore you guys too much with the details, but essentially it's more to do with the international tax landscape where we deal with multinational enterprises around the world who are operating in different tax jurisdictions. And there's certain sort of structural implementation aspects that they're looking at, and they essentially get the transfer pricing team involved. Yeah, I've had a bit of experience across a few of the big fours, but I find myself now at EY here in Dubai. I was in Manchester, as Ibra said, just a few weeks ago on a leave trip, but I hope everyone's still keeping safe over there anyway. So that's a bit of background about myself and how I got here. Like I mentioned, it was when you work for maybe an accounting firm, be it Big Four or even not, it does give you quite a depth of experience, especially working with clients. But I think more importantly is working with the people yourselves. Like, so as you'll notice, this is a lot of team focused projects, similar to what you're doing in university. you'll go to your lectures, but you'll also have maybe like seminars or workshops where you're building sort of team relationships. And when I was at university, I didn't really quite get that. I'm not quite sure why I have to work as part of a team, but I found that I was gaining skills even when I didn't know it. And until this day, I'm very rarely working alone. I'm always working in a team, be it of maybe 2 or 3, or be it of 10 or 15. Something I enjoyed through university, and I found that was quite helpful when I started working myself. And then, yeah, the international aspect was something I was quite interested in, mainly because, you know, as you might notice, like, you know, when you're working for a company like any of the big 4, or even the top 10, you know, you have scope to get involved in things overseas. And when you think you don't have much knowledge about, you know, for example, tax in Bermuda, well, there is a lack of, but they've got some form of regulations anyway. But yeah, you get exposed to this kind of stuff, which I found quite interesting anyway. And then your team and your network is then expanding not only to your office, but also overseas as well. So that was something quite interesting to me. And then I thought Dubai was also a place with a lot of sun for me, where there was a lot of holidays there anyway. And I decided to move out here, leaving the weather in Manchester behind and coming over to Dubai. So yeah, this is how I found myself here now. And then there's another question that I think I want to sort of touch on, is how to succeed in you know, both the application process, but also in a role here in sort of the accounting practice. But I'll first touch on the application process. Now has massively changed from when I did it back in many moons ago now. But it was, what I know, it was an application and assessment center, then an interview. But now I understand there's an application, there's some online assessments, there's a video simulation, and there's sort of what they call an insight day for EY anyway, but, and then an interview. So I think the key thing here, now being on the other side where I'm conducting assessment centers and interviews, I think the key thing that I look out for, and the business as well, is first to look up for someone who's motivated, someone who's enthusiastic, someone again who can gel as part of a team. And I think lastly, and quite importantly as well, somebody who comes quite well prepared. You don't need to know the details about any of the particular service lines that you're applying for, but I just feel that if you show yourself you're prepared, that comes across quite quickly in the interview process itself. And then secondly, in the job role itself, you know, hopefully a lot of you guys will be successful in these applications. And then I think, again, the key thing here is being part of a team, showing that you're keen, motivated, wanting to do well. And then I think how the practice has changed over the years. Anyway, it's quite transparent, quite a collaborative environment as well. So I do think there's a lot of things to be taken away from there. And I think a lot of you guys eventually, hopefully, when you do join, or if you do join, we'll see this firsthand.
One question that I had is, obviously, if I'm in the position of a graduate, and I'm not too sure what tax is exactly about, because it's such a broad field. How would I kind of understand if I were to go into a tax graduate scheme, what kind of tax I'll be exposed into, whether it be that corporate tax, personal tax, business tax? So how would I get an understanding of what type of tax I want to specialize into or get an understanding of?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I'll tell you how I went about this. So before I applied, I was looking at these different types of taxes, you know, and it was corporate tax that I was interested in. And when I started as a graduate, I started in corporate tax, but yeah, I was interested in personal tax. But I went myself and, you know, spoke to the different teams around me, just trying to get a bit of an understanding. You know, and there's plenty of stuff on company websites like EY or KPMG or any of the big 4, where you can learn about the particulars of what each team is looking after. So for me, it was I was a bit more proactive, you know, trying to reach out to people. LinkedIn wasn't a sort of a big thing back then. I know I'm showing my age a little bit, but you know, I've seen people now, you know, graduates or those in universities coming out to me, asking me what I do and how this is different to any other taxes. And you know, that's another sort of channel, I would say, that we've got the luxury of anyway. So I would say, if there's any particular questions, I wouldn't say reach out to everyone you find on LinkedIn, but you know, maybe that could be something you could explore. But yeah, I think you brought a really good question, and I think there is a lot of stuff out there that you can find out before. Whilst you're in a job, there's also teams that you can speak to directly as well. So your peers, it doesn't necessarily need to be the senior management of the actual business. It could be those who are in a similar position or 1-2 years into the job itself.
I'm just moving on from kind of the tax graduate scheme, just to kind of get a question in from the Q&A. A question from Raj. How has technology developed over, obviously you've seen the process from being a graduate all the way now to a manager. So how would you say technology has evolved specifically for tax over the years?
Yeah, it's a really good question as well, because technology has massively changed. I remember, when I was doing it, obviously, of course, we were using laptops, etc. But when I was speaking to people then, like the veterans, and even they were doing it on paper. But now I'm seeing that we're using macros, we're using sort of automated systems to prepare, stuff that was manually prepared before. We use it, particularly in transfer pricing as well, because you generally work on projects that are quite large, for like multiple countries, like 10, 15 countries, where before I would say, I don't know, like 10 years ago, you would have to draft these documents yourself. But now, a lot of the big four, especially EY, have embraced technology and help, take the manual side away. And we're now focusing on more of the value-add pieces of work here in Dubai.
That's really insightful. Just kind of going back to the Q&A on a separate topic. So one of the questions is what you did your degree in, but I'm just going to expand on that a bit more specifically. So if I'm interested in tax, but I'm not necessarily from your traditional accountancy / business degree, is tax still a route for me if I'm not coming from that traditional accountancy finance background?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't have a clue about tax when I joined. I did accounting and finance at university, thinking that I had to do it to do an accounting job, but that was something that I didn't learn back then. But no, everybody I worked with, I think out of maybe, if I put a percentage on it, maybe 10 to 20% have an accounting degree or a finance degree. Everybody else comes from different backgrounds. So yeah, there's no assumed knowledge when you start a graduate job anyway. But yeah, like I said, there was just a bit of research that I did, nothing too much in detail, but the degree that I did didn't essentially get me my job. If that was the question, I had people who did chemistry, I had some others that did like marketing of some sort, so yeah, there isn't a bearing on the degree that you do to the job that you actually get.
Obviously, you mentioned some skills and some tips in order to become successful towards the latter part of the application stage. And you mentioned certain characteristics such as being motivated, prepared, enthusiastic, being prepared to be a team worker. Do you have any other suggestions for like the partner interview on how you could kind of excel in that interview?
That's a tricky one, because the interviews that I've had with partners, I particularly remember being quite nervous, and I felt always, as much as preparation I did, I felt I was always underprepared, or if they were going to throw a question at me, because you hear these horror stories like how many pizza boxes are sold in New York, like you don't get that type of stuff. I think the real thing here is practice, and another key thing is as well building a rapport. I think essentially the partner isn't going to quiz you on your technical knowledge. They're going to essentially have a look, can I put this person in my team, and can I put this person in front of my clients? So I think if you just be genuine and you be yourself, everything else should follow. Like, if you've prepared yourself without trying to put like certain points down and say them like when it makes no sense, that won't work well. But if you just have a sort of an honest conversation and try to answer as much as you can. I think one of the key things I had, what I particularly remember when I had a partner interview, he asked me a question which I didn't know, and then rather try to give a woolly answer or try to make something up, I essentially actually told him I don't know the answer to that question. It was quite technical, to be honest with you, at the time.
I would definitely resonate with that, obviously, because I had a couple of partner interviews, one when I joined the graduate scheme at PwC, and then the transition of once becoming qualified, moving into the more senior roles when I applied for EY. I think 100% I would reiterate those points about being authentic, being who you are, and then your personality really should come across. I would definitely reiterate those points. Just a final couple of points. So one coming from the Q&A. Just wanted to get an understanding of, once obviously you completed the tax graduate scheme, you then kind of went into a more specialized field, and obviously specifically in transfer pricing. What was your motivation behind going into transfer pricing, and how did you come about that decision?
Yeah, so when I was sort of growing up through the ranks, you get a choice of what you want to do, like within reason. So within tax, you can express interest in to do a bit more international tax, or you can do a bit more local tax, or you can essentially not do what you want, but you do have sort of a freedom to ask what you want to do. And it was purely because of the team I was working with, and there was a combination of also having a view of moving abroad eventually. You know, and I thought at the time, you know, if I want to move abroad, I need to maybe, you know, open up my eyes a little bit and look across the pond, work in the UK, but on sort of international projects. And it did help. I don't think that was the only reason. I think it just gave me the exposure, and it was just something that I quite enjoyed, you know. But again, that was just me. I know other people who liked the UK aspect of it, or, you know, they wanted to move to a different service line after they completed their 3-year sort of graduate program, you know, again, and that was an option. And I think generally, if you want to do well, you know, and you put your mind to it, I think these firms here give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, perfect, makes sense. And just moving on to the last question. Apologies, going back to the graduate scheme again. But as you were at the time you were making your application to GT and the wider firms in general, did you have any specific experience you could bank on, like a volunteering at a local accountancy firm or something of that nature, or were you going completely almost blind, if that makes sense?
No, that's a really good point as well, to be honest, because even now when I'm doing interviews, of course we're interested in your university degree and what you've been doing, but a thing that really starts a conversation is the stuff that you do in life, so outside of university. And I think I wasn't consciously doing that back in university. I was just doing that generally. So, you know, like you said, like we did sort of volunteer work, you know, where we can. We also had you know, I had a job. I think I was working for like RBS at the time, Tesco, and again, they were conversations I still have up until this day, probably more back when I was applying as a graduate, about the sort of skills that I've learned, and also the extracurricular activities. So I don't think anything you do outside of university is a I wouldn't say a waste of time, but I'd say there's a lot of skills that you're obtaining. Like you said, you play football, like, you know, you can talk about how you organize football games, how you work as part of a team, you know, when you may have been in a particular tournament, for example. This is all stuff that is interesting to, I would say, people within this firm. I'd say everyone's got a degree. I wouldn't say everyone's got a degree or a form of education, but I think what really makes you stand out is the stuff that you do in your personal life.
Totally agree with that. I think obviously ultimately at the end of the day, everyone who's attending this webcast is ultimately competing with each other for a job. And if everyone's just 100% totally degree orientated, you need to be able to differentiate yourself against other people. So kind of doing these extracurricular activities, it doesn't necessarily need to be related into your field, because there's that expectation is you're going in, you don't know the technical knowledge, but it's more kind of like, are you able to demonstrate that competency, those wider, more personality skill sets instead? So having a part-time job, getting involved into societies at university, I think would definitely be helpful. So thank you for that, your time there, Zahia. Again, appreciate you kind of doing this video call with us, especially just having a flight yesterday. Just to reiterate to the wider audience, Zahia has to drop off, but if you do have any questions, by all means, drop them in the Q&A if they're specifically related to the tax schemes, and we can pick them up separately with Zahia. So thanks for your time again, Zahia, and I'll just move on to the next speaker. So our next speaker is Muhammad Hamad. He currently works in KPMG as a senior manager within the financial services. Just to give a very vague overview, when I say financial services, so generally speaking, across the big four, audit division or the assurance division is split into 3 subdivisions. So you have financial services, you have public sector, and then each firm has different names for this. For example, at PwC is called core audit, at EY is called UKNI, and these are just your normal everyday day-to-day businesses, whereas for Muhammad, he specifically specializes within the financial services. And one thing I want to highlight is a common theme across all our speakers actually is each one has experience of working across the big four. So Muhammad currently works at KPMG. Before this, he works at EY and Deloitte. And so our speakers are in a good place to kind of give a really good insight, not just what it takes to be successful in the application process, but a cultural understanding of the different firms as well, which is quite important, because as much as the company you're applying to needs to fit you, you also need to fit them as well, how you are personally as well. So these are quite important characteristics to pick up on as well. So I'll just hand you over to Mohammed to kind of give an overview of his career so far.
Thanks, Abrar, for introducing me, and thanks for showing my picture as a young man. That picture was probably taken 7-8 years ago. But yeah, as Abrar said, what I'll actually start first is just give you a brief idea of my career. So basically, I studied in Abu Dhabi at school. Then I went to Newcastle University. I did my degree in accounting and finance. Then I've done my master's in banking and finance. That was when I finished when I started my master's degree, the financial crisis in 2008 started, and it was hard to get a job in the UK. So what I've done is I went back to Abu Dhabi and I worked with Ernst & Young. So started my career in audit with Ernst & Young in the assurance department. By then it wasn't any kind of specialty. It was basically free for all. So I used to do financial services. I audited one of the largest financial services, actually one of the largest listed banks in the Middle East. Also, I've done a lot of projects with the government. They were quite interesting projects. At one point, they were basically called Ipsos projects, where we convert the financial statements of the government from cash to what we call international public standards accounting. And basically what we've done is evaluated most of the bridges, streets, buildings, and all of that of the state of Abu Dhabi and put it into a balance sheet. And they've used that to basically raise for bonds. I've also worked on one of the largest construction companies in the Middle East. It was based in Athens. So we used to go there and spend almost 3 months doing the consolidation. And I stayed with EY almost 4 years in Abu Dhabi. After that, in 2014, came here to the UK. I've joined KPMG in Manchester, but I work mainly on financial services audit. But that doesn't mean I only work in Manchester. Actually, my clients are spread across all of the UK, from London, Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham. I've audited lots of banks, building societies, SPVs, debt purchase companies, so anything which is related to basic financial services industry. I used to audit that. Also, as part of my given that I'm an audit, but given that you work in a Big Four, you do have the choice to work in other departments. I do also work with the deal advisory and securitization department. So what we do is we deal with investment banks like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. What we do is help their clients to raise money through securitization. I've also, again, rather than just focusing on audit, I've also worked at a point of time with the audit quality department in KPMG. As most of you know, in the past 2 years, KPMG have been in the headlines a lot, mainly due to its audit quality and the issues we faced due to some of the companies that went bust. So what KPMG did as a company is that they created what they call Audit Center of Excellence. So I've joined that Audit Center of Excellence, and I've created some standardized approaches on process and controls and presented for training for the whole company in order to start using that moving forward. So it was a long career, probably almost 11 years, mixed from auditing financial services, auditing in the public sector, construction, just almost touched on most of these industries. So yeah, and if thinking about it, why did I join audit? It's because of the. So I didn't actually join audit. If you think about what I wanted to do is to join a Big Four, and it's because of the reasons, what I mentioned before, in terms of the fact that you have the chance to work in different departments. As I said, I've worked in 3 or 4 different departments with KPMG, and this is why I joined the Big Four. And but auditing specifically is because of the depth that you get into in terms of understanding the clients you work in. I mean, when you start your career with one of the Big Four and in auditing specifically, what happens is that the first thing you do is they send you to basically understand the business itself, and part of doing that is understanding the controls the companies do. And when you go to different industries and you start understanding the controls and the structure of these businesses, after 2 or 3 years, you start realizing that you actually know how most of these companies work, whether it's a bank, whether it's a construction company, whether it's a hotel. You'll just know how they work, given that you look at you have to understand the structure in terms of understand how the money flows, how they make money, how they spend their expenses. So all of that gives you a good background knowledge. And I don't think, I personally don't think you could learn as much as you want about any industry, or even how companies operate and how they make money or how they make business, unless you actually you visit them, you see them, you speak to them, and this is what basically a Big Four would give you, and this is what even a career in audit would give you. And I've been told that when I was at university, I've done my internship in Deloitte, I've done another internship at KPMG, and when I used to go with the audit teams and see the way they speak, the way the people they meet in these businesses, you just start realizing that it builds up that kind of knowledge you have and the exposure you get, and this is why I've joined audit myself. In terms of what would I basically advise in terms of getting yourself into one of the Big Four is basically trying to speak to people who actually join the Big Four, trying to understand the process in terms of recruitment, in terms of the interview process. And once you do that, just practice, keep practicing. Yeah, even practice your interview skills. You might, sometimes you actually have to go into a mock interview with one of your friends, or even someone in another Big Four. If you know him, you could just go through a mock interview, let him ask the questions and answer it. You'd be surprised that once someone asks you a question, you might know it in your head, but you just need to practice so that it could come out smoothly. So I would always advise just do a lot of interview mocks, and again, in terms of if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning when you apply, there's the psychometric tests. These are there's a lot of them online. You could do a lot of that. Just keep practicing. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. It becomes second nature for you. During the interview process itself as well, just try to be as honest as possible. Make sure you have an idea of what you want to talk about, because most of these interviews are what we call our behavioral interviews. So the interview would ask you about questions in terms of, as an example, give me a situation where you had to basically lead a team in terms of trying to perform a task or something like that. And most of these questions are going to be something similar. So you have to have these kind of situations already in your head, and again, practicing on how you're gonna talk them. So it's all about practice. It's all about knowing these situations, being honest, and just also show a bit of confidence. Definitely, that's a must. That's probably it in terms of what you need to do in terms of getting into any of the Big Four.
Just a point to raise there, which what you touched on, Mohammed. You mentioned how in the interview stage you'll be asked a lot of competency questions. So describe a time where you managed to effectively work in the team, or questions of this nature. And just to kind of reiterate the point that Zahir made earlier on, that it's important to, if you were asked this question, a lot of people will just go straight away to university. I had this group project, I had this group task with some of my work, my peers. So one of the questions I saw in the Q&A is how to distinguish yourself. So if you were to do extracurricular activities or sport or work outside of university, that's a way of distinguishing yourself, because ultimately the manager's partner might have 20 interviews to do in a day, and if 19 of them all talk about, he's going to ask the same question to all 20 people, but if every single one of them, 19 people say, how I effectively worked in a team, it was an experience I did in a group university project, but the one person says, or I managed a football team, or I had this kind of volunteering campaign that I did, that helps to distinguish and stand out a bit. So definitely kind of reiterate those points that you mentioned, Mohammed. Just moving on to some of the questions within the Q&A. One thing, obviously, you've worked at a number of Big Four companies, Mohammed, KPMG, EY, and Deloitte. Is there any kind of specific characteristics you can benchmark for each one, for KPMG, EY, and Deloitte? Is there any something similarities or even differences you could mention?
I'll be honest with you, they're all the same. They even use the same. For example, at EY, if you call something, literally everything is the same. Even the process you go through in terms of admin, HR, even the audit methodology is pretty much the same, but they call it differently. And I'll be honest, probably they all steal from each other ideas. I think the first one, for example, the Center of Excellence, I think was first invented by PwC, then each of the other big four took it from them. I think KPMG did something has to do with, in the UK, they had to do with called, I forgot what they called, it's like one firm kind of our deal or something like that, and then the rest of the big four took that from them. But they call it something else. They just tweak the words and they call it something else. But in reality, they're all the same. They're all good, by the way, and all of them is. I mean, even sometimes people would say, "Oh, you know, PwC is doing better than KPMG, or KPMG is doing better than you." It doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, what makes a difference is the actual team you're going to work in. So even in a department, you might have some people you might not like to work with, but it all depends on who you work with in the team, because as you know, you're going to work in different projects, and each project will have a different manager, a different partner, and that's a nice thing about working in a big four. The exposure you get, eventually it's all based on who you work with as an individual, but most of the time, 90% of the time, the individuals you work with, irrespective of any of the big four, are actually nice people to work with, and you learn a lot in that process. But in terms of differences between them, I personally couldn't find any differences. They call the same thing in a different way. When I went from EY to KPMG, even though I was in EY in Abu Dhabi, I went to KPMG in the UK. As I said, it didn't make much difference. I mean, there was a bit of differences just in terms of working hours, but that has to do with the fact that in Abu Dhabi, the department I used to work with was a bit hectic, given that we used to have a lot of high-profile clients, but we didn't have much people. But when I came to the UK, it was a bit more relaxed in the beginning. But then when the Manchester office basically picked up some work, it became almost similar in terms of working hours to what I used to do in Abu Dhabi. So as I said, it's basically based on your luck. That's it. But otherwise, in terms of differences, they're all similar.
Just on international work, as you mentioned it, in terms of obviously you came from Abu Dhabi to Manchester. But long term, for some of the attendees we have in this webcast now, some of them may potentially want to explore the option of working abroad, and they'll go from the UK abroad. In your experience or what you've seen in Manchester, is there that how easy or how challenging is it for people to kind of work abroad? Once, I'm guessing the baseline is they need to be qualified before they could venture out abroad.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely better to be qualified than go. So if you're in the UK and you basically do your degree, do your qualification, then that's the best time you go abroad, because you see, when you, I'll just give an example in Abu Dhabi. I don't know how it is in the rest of the Middle East, but in Abu Dhabi, for example, if you wouldn't basically go above an engagement auditor or senior auditor until you pass your exams. So basically, and if you go there without being qualified, it's not going to be as helpful. But if you get qualified, you become assistant manager in the UK, then you move to the Middle East, then I think you'll have a better chance in getting a better job and a better salary, or even securing or even demanding a better salary. In terms of how easy it is, I think it's quite easy, because the experience you get in the UK is definitely, I'm not going to say it's a better auditing experience. So I'll give an example. In audit, there's some, I mean, as an auditor, you have to know accounting. In the Middle East, the auditors are better accountants than they are auditors, but in the UK, the auditors are better auditors than accountants. And the reason is because of the level of clients you have. In the UK, the clients you work with are quite good, in a sense that when you go do an audit with them, they're actually, they already know the background of the accounting background, and therefore what you do is basically review what they've done. But in the Middle East, sometimes what you'll find out is that the accounting knowledge is a bit lacking, and therefore what happens is that you turn from an auditor to an accountant. So you end up doing what you were supposed to review in the first place, which is not supposed to be the case, but this is how you end up doing. So I think it's good both ways. You could start doing that or doing that. It's the same thing. But I personally think it's better to, if you start in the UK then move to the Middle East, you'll get a better chance, because also in the UK you have a regulator, and therefore the pressure on the Big Four in the UK is way more than, for example, in Abu Dhabi, where the regulator is just chilling. Basically, they're not gonna even when they review files in Abu Dhabi, they're not gonna find a lot of issues. But in the UK, the regulator is quite good, and therefore, whenever someone reviews your file, they pick up some issues, and therefore you learn from them. So that kind of being on the spotlight just gets the best out of you, if that makes sense. So it's good to start in the UK and then move there, because you could basically transfer some of that skills.
So I just thank you for your time. I'll just move on to our last but not least speaker, which is Bilal Khalid. Bilal is currently a assistant director at EY, working at transactional services. So far we've had tax, we've had audit, now we've got a final service line, which is transactions within the advisory service line. And just a brief overview of his career so far. Bilal initially actually trained within audit at KPMG, where he became an assistant manager. And once he became an assistant manager, he moved service lines to transactional services, getting promoted to manager, where he's now in his current role as a assistant director at EY within the transactional teams. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Bilal.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for getting me involved in this as well, in the good job that you guys are doing. I guess I should probably start with explaining what transaction services is, or what I'm doing. I've been in Big Four since 2009, so it's been a pretty long time. Have had a great experience both at KPMG and EY. What is it that I do? I think the easiest way I normally explain this to people is that, if you buy a house, normally you will have someone who's going to do the survey and someone who's actually selling that house. And we are the people who will do the survey. So essentially just translate that into buying a company. So we're the people who actually go in and look at all the financials of the company and highlight all the risks, help with valuations, adjustments, and making sure that there isn't any exposure to our client who is either buying or selling the company. In the last year, though, based on, as COVID's happened and things that have been going on, I have actually been working quite closely with the restructuring team in EY as well. So I've seen both sides of the coin, companies that are doing pretty well and buying and selling, and companies that are not doing so well and need a bit of a turnaround or insolvency. So I'm actually technically on secondment to restructuring for a year, work across both service lines. So that's what I do in a summary. Feel free to ask more questions and I can enlighten you as to what the details of some of these things are. In terms of background, I am originally from Pakistan. I came to Manchester from Pakistan to do my A-levels, and my parents thought that was a brilliant idea at the time, and I wasn't convinced, and in hindsight, they're always right. So I did my degree in Manchester University. I did BSc Economics, BA Consci, if that's what's still called there, because we like to separate ourselves from the BA Econ people, because we were doing some hard mathematical economics and econometrics modules, which I still don't know why I did that. And then I moved on to audit, as Ibrahim said, in KPMG. But one of the things that I did was I did that through an internship program. So those of you guys who still have an opportunity to do that, I will highly encourage, because I did my internship in Leeds in the audit team at KPMG, applied through the usual summer internship programs that they have and stuff. And I think the exposure that you get to understanding the people and the work that's done through an internship program is just immense. That's, it opens the whole world to you. And the reason I say that is because when I joined university, I didn't even know what Big Four was, or they even existed. Having, background from Pakistan and not any accountants in my family. So I found this out through a friend of a friend at university who did an internship in Deloitte and basically told us all about it and said, oh, that sounds very interesting. Let me try accounting. And then I started going through all these graduate fairs and then I think the first thing I did was through a best friend of mine or with a best friend of mine at university was I went to an insight day for PwC. I think it was a very simple application at that time, and I'm pretty sure EY, KPMG do the same things as well. I'm not sure about Deloitte actually, but I'm pretty sure I've came across it in EY and KPMG, and that was very simple application of why do you want to do this, what it is, and it was they basically put us up in a hotel for 1 or 2 days. They gave us a project to work through. There was a lot of demonstrations around what each of the service lines are, what do they do, what is PwC, what is, where do they have offices, how do they function, etc., etc., etc. And that actually gathered a lot of interest in my head, having known nothing about this. And that's when I actually started going through all the, the graduate fairs, talking to different people about it, and then applied through the internship program in KPMG. I came back to Manchester. Whilst I enjoyed working in Leeds team, and team was really nice and stuff, all my friends and everyone was in Manchester. So I applied through the grad scheme at KPMG, but I said I wanted to do it in Manchester, and they happily accepted me there. I have been involved at KPMG in a lot of graduate recruitment, be it interviews, be it all the group exercises they used to do then. There was all the and I mean I know things have changed, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I have no idea what the graduate recruitment looks like now, because for the past, I say 3 to 4 years, I've been more involved in experienced recruitment in TS. So I stepped out of graduate recruitment, and now it's more free for all. I can go and ask anyone any questions I like, and there is no script or marking scheme that I need to normally adhere to. Which is quite fun, actually. So I think so I mean that's the background. I do. I was going to say I'd come on to starting with some of the tips and for the guys who are looking to get into the Big Four, and then feel free to ask me any questions and I'll dive into details and stuff. But when I was sat down thinking about what I'm going to say about the big tips in getting into Big Four, I almost thought it was as simple as someone in a seminar that I did at EY, which is something called the Future Leaders Program. It was as simple as someone knowing how, who, and why of this. So I think all of you who have joined this know what you want to do. It's just about knowing how, who, and why. And when I say these things, I mean what is how. How basically means what do you need to do to be able to get in. As I mentioned earlier, there's insight days, there's summer internship programs, there's lots of information on grad scheme sites for all the Big Four and the Big 10 and most of the companies that you need to get into. There is the careers thing at your university, the career advice, which I actually used quite a lot, especially for mock interviews, reading, and actually trying out the exercises that were at the career center in Manchester. I don't know what it's called now. Me and my friends actually used to go there when we were applying for all the Big Four and other firms that we did, and used to do that as a group. We test each other out. And and I think at that point in time, University of Manchester also had this facility where they would interview you, they would video you, and they would talk through what you did right or wrong in that interview, watching the video back. So again, not sure if that still happens, but that was quite helpful. And to be honest, me and my friends started doing that for each other afterwards. And as daunting as it is, someone coming in and asking you questions and you're videoing yourself and watching it back, it is, I'd say all this experience is uncomfortable. So you'd rather be in a mock environment and get uncomfortable than do get uncomfortable for the first time in the real thing. So, definitely use all of these services. So, that is definitely the how to do these things. Then I was saying who, and I almost jumped into who as well, which is that, who do you need to know to be able to do these things? As in, what are you jumping into? Who will have that knowledge? Is something that's normally referred to in the corporate world as your social capital sometimes, and that's where this call that you have joined comes into as well. So grad gurus are definitely some of the who's who are important, who've been through all of this and know exactly what happens and how it happens and can help you out. Do go to your careers fairs. There's lots of people like me who are standing there, who are there genuinely interested in talking to you guys rather than, just having a day out of work. So, and that's quite encouraged in all the firms that I have been into as well. So start talking to them, or some of them are even happy. Like I know I was, even sharing my business cards and stuff and helping people through as in when, if I thought someone was really interested, I didn't hand them out to everyone. But if I thought someone was really interesting and left an impression with me, then I would say that, I'd definitely be happy to help you out. And then use your career service. Those guys have been doing this for years. They know exactly how things work. They've been in touch with companies for years and years. All these companies are actually recruiting on all campuses, and they want to know all these universities, and they know exactly, they're all analyzing which universities the people are coming from, how many successful recruits they were. They're analyzing all this data, right? So they know what universities they want to target more. They know exactly what universities they want to target less. They know exactly what where they want to go to and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that they're not going to target all of them. They will, but there will be a concentration towards certain ones and not the other ones, etc., depending on success. Because think about it, it's the people who are working. There's a HR department who obviously is in touch with all of them and stuff, but most of the people who are getting involved in this recruitment process are people like us who are doing the day-to-day job, and we are expected to take some time out of that day-to-day job to help with this recruitment, which I said is very, very encouraged in all the firms I've been in anyway, KPMG and EY. But there is only so much we can do, and there's a certain limit to our time as to what we can do and stuff. So these career advice people are constantly in touch with the HR department. They know exactly what's going on. So please do use all the services that they've got, all the examples they've got. Some of them are actually given by the firms like ours to them to prep people. And I remember, I'm sure the guys, the grad gurus will be able to tell you better, but I remember years and years ago when I was doing this, there was lots of different websites which had a lot of different practice psychometric tests, E-tray exercises, group exercises, and all that kind of stuff, which we all downloaded and just as a group of friends, just basically practiced it out and stuff. So definitely do that. And then I think lastly, I'll just come on to why. And I think most of you almost know exactly why you want to do this. Or you've made up your mind and things like that when you've got to the answer of what you want to do. But I think when you go through the assessment center and when you go through all of the recruitment process, which by no means is an easy ordeal, it is very, very, very difficult and very demanding, and very competitive as well. I think you just need to be clear in that process, the why are you doing this and why are you the right person for this. And if you've convinced yourself why, then that just needs to come across. And then the only thing I'd say from my personal experience is a lot of that comes down to nerves and confidence. I never thought I wasn't clear why I wanted to do this. I never thought I was not someone who was capable of not doing this. Every interview or exercise that I failed was just because I could not take the pressure. or handle the pressure very well. And things improved eventually as I did more exercise and went through more stuff. Some of us took longer, some of us were natural at it. But I genuinely feel if I ever looked back on all the interviews and all the assessment centers that I've done, or even my own experience or friends or family experiences, most of them just came down to the fact that, you know, you'd prepare 1,000 different things before this, and you do all this stuff, but on the day you just, it'd go depending on how you felt. I think confidence is definitely the key here. And when I say confidence is the key, how can you develop your confidence? You can develop it by making sure you're 100% clear as to what you want to come across in your interview, and don't make a list of 100 things, make a list of 10. Make sure you cover them all off in your head when you're doing that in an assessment or whatever. You know, if you've passed the psychometric tests and stuff like that, and you're doing well at university, everyone knows you're clever. Some of the things that the guys were saying earlier is important. You know, when you run into these assessment centers, they already know how good academically you are, because that's all on your application form. What they want to know now is what sort of a person you are, and are you going to fit with the teams, or sort of the teams that we've got, that we are recruiting you for. And you know, what is your decision making process, because that's quite important as well. As Zahir said, don't blag. If you don't know it, don't say it, or at least say that you're not sure about it, but this is what you think. And you know, you can always turn that question to whoever is doing your interview to, this is what I think, what do you think? And that was one of my most useful techniques that I developed later on, which is that, you know, I don't know the answer. I think this is what it is. You tell me. And I don't think it always used to go down well. But I think always consider the person sat on the other side of the table knows more than you, surely, and has got to a position because they've had experiences which you are willing to have. So, you know, they already know the answer that you're going to give them is not going to be complete or comprehensive by any means. It is your thinking process and decision making process that they are wanting to understand, and just take them through that journey, you know, in a way that, you know, your personality comes across. And I think the other thing that I would say, and I'll shut up after this, is that none of the experiences that you've had in life, whether it be volunteering, sports, charity work, you know, whatever things you've done academically, projects, etc., are irrelevant. There is a lot that you have learned that you probably didn't realize at that time when you were doing this, that you know, that can help you in a career, which is all that most of the people are interested in listening to and finding out about when you're going through this process. So one of the things that I found quite disciplined as I got through this process was that I just jotted down everything that I did, and I basically jotted down what did I learn from it, and then how did that fit against the competencies that most of these assessment centers were asking me for. And you know, and I knew exactly what competency I wanted. You know, what if they were asking me questions on certain competencies, what experiences of mine I wanted to talk to. And you know, that really helped me, which is, you know, rather than having a jumble of things in my head, I almost knew exactly, you know, the word. When I heard it, I was like, okay, I know this is what I need to talk about now, and this is what they need to know about me. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you for that, Bilal. A lot of gems in there. One thing that stuck out to me was specifically how you mentioned internships. So I know myself, I did a placement year at PwC. Ahmed did an internship, and likewise Ali did as well. And just I can't stress how beneficial an internship or placement can be, because when we did our internship placement, we were offered a conditional offer. So in our final year, all we had to do was get a minimum 2-1. So we didn't need to worry about any job applications. We just fully devote our time onto our studies. So for those first and second years in this call, I would highly reiterate and stress the importance of trying to get an internship and placement. And obviously it's not the end of the world if you don't get one, if you're into your final year and you're not got an internship or a placement on your CV, but it gives you a really good footing and a foundation to build upon. So really a lot of good gems you mentioned there, Bilal. Thanks for your time. I'm going to divert our attention now towards the Q&A. Just to reiterate to all our attendees, there's a Q&A functionality. I can see a couple of questions coming in, so by all means, plug in your answers. If I can also request Ali and Ahmed to put their cameras on and come off mute, as they'll be answering some of the questions as well. And I'll facilitate this Q&A and direct any questions to our guest speakers. The first one, which is a very good question, is from Mohammed. So his question is, if I don't get into the top 4 position for a graduate role, what other companies could I join? What are my other options to do? But I still want to specialize in finance. And B is, how do I eventually then get into a big 4 job role? So I think if we don't get into a top 4 graduate role, what are our other options? And B, if we want to long term, then eventually get into a big 4, how easy is that transition, or how comfortable can we make that transition? Bilal, if I can just pose that question to you, if that's okay to begin with.
Yeah, that's fine. My experience is that normally, if you don't get into Big 4, I mean, there's nothing to be disheartened about. It's not the end of the world. You know, you want to do what you want to do, and you'll get there one way or the other. So, you know, all my life, I've just taken the opportunities that have come up to me rather than go on and sort them, mostly, to be honest. So, as I mentioned, this Big 4 thing only came up to me just because a friend mentioned it and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, by all means, you guys are more proactive than I was, and obviously you're joining this call. So, you know, please don't get disheartened by the number of rejections that you get and stuff like that. This is all part and parcel of the learning, and there's a lot you pick up from some of these. I'd say if you don't get into the Big 4 and you're really keen to get into the Big 4, my personal advice is, please go to a professional services firm, because you know, whether that's the Big 10, whether it's even smaller, etc. It's your experience that counts. Go to a firm that is doing the same thing that you want to do in a Big 4. And you will still learn up. You'll get your chartered. You learn all the right things. You'll do it with probably smaller clients, but you'll still be, you know, leveraging a lot of really good experience. And you know, I work in Manchester. That's all mid markets. That's all. Most of the bread and butter is smaller companies. There's only a handful of big giants compared to London in Manchester, who obviously we work for and spend a lot of time with. You know, there is a lot of volume rather than you know, 1 or 2 or 3 big accounts, as some of the partners will have in London. So, you know, if you're working at Mazars or BDO or GTs or you know, Tenon or whatever, it's you are still getting the relevant experience. I haven't had in my career a lot of people who have moved up from or you know, moved across or whatever, from a lot of different locations in the country as well as different firms, but generally it has been to professional services firms. I have personally interviewed people from Mazars and GT and BDO. Some of the best performing people in my team are actually from BDO. So, you know, my recommendation is, if you don't get in, just please do something similar at a different firm, and you know, the door's always open for you.
Ali, can I also pose the same question to you, because obviously I know you did an internship at Lloyd's. So again, like, what would your options be if you weren't to get into Big 4?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so. In the second year, we were all applying for internships together, basically. I wasn't successful in my Big 4 applications, but I did get through the Lloyd's internal audit program for the summer internship. And yeah, like I said, when it came to actually doing the graduate scheme applications, I was able to draw on that experience that I had at Lloyd's, and that definitely did help me. For sure, everybody's journey is different, and I don't think that there's one shoe that, or one size that fits all. And the experience that you can get on another internship is definitely valuable. And yeah, like I said, getting that professional experience, even if it's at I mean, not a professional service firm, but like a bank, etc. I still think that is valuable, because you still understand what the culture is like of working for a big company. The day-to-day stuff that you do in the role can definitely be something that you can draw on when it comes to interviews. So for sure, I feel like if you do get an opportunity to do an internship anywhere, like, it is still possible to transition into the Big Four afterwards. Like, for example, I did Lloyd's and then I got onto EY. And I don't think I would have got onto EY if I hadn't had that experience at Lloyd's. So for me, it was definitely valuable, and the transition was not difficult. It was pretty straightforward. I did the interview, they liked me, and yeah. So I'd say if you are in the finance sector, it does help you, even if it's not a professional service firm.
Moving on to the next question, how did you discover what specific field or / service line was best for you when you were applying? If I could send that question to Ahmed, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Imran. I think we've obviously discussed that you've got three main service lines: tax, audit, and advisory. So generally speaking, if you are unsure of what you want to do, for example, like the position that I was in, you want to start off in audit, get your chartered accounting, and that then gives you the option to go into, say, tax or to go into advisory. So audit is a very open sort of field. It's sort of similar to studying economics at university, maybe, where you can sort of go into a number of different fields. I think if you wanted to go into, say, tax, you would have to be maybe of quite a specific personality type, maybe quite stuck into the detail. You know, a lot of people I spoke to when I was in tax said they spent a lot of the day reading legislation, doing a lot of research. You know, if you're more of a problem-solving type, you're sort of more entrepreneurial, then you maybe want to go into management consulting or transactional services. So I think the key for me was not really knowing, or having basically no clue of what I wanted to do, was why I sort of took the easy option of going into audit. And now that I do have my chartered accounting qualification, I am looking to make the move into, initially it was tax, but now I'm looking to move into advisory. So, you know, from one perspective, you do need to put time and thought into which field you want to go into. But to be honest, from another perspective, even if you do start off in tax or audit or advisory, you can sort of move across the departments. So in a sense, it's as long as you break into the Big Four in any way, shape or form, you can sort of internally move about once you've broken in. So it's I would say it's more important to get into the Big Four than, you know, really spending a lot of time deciding which field you actually want to get into.
Moving on to you, Bilal, just a bit of a niche specific question given your background. So I'll read out the question. For someone who has a background in economics, what service line would you recommend as being most enjoyable, given a person from an economics background?
Okay, my personal experience, I did and it's almost going back to the point that Ahmed just made, which is, I had no idea what course I wanted to do at university. So I said, I know I want to be somewhere around finance. So what shall I do? Economics sounded interesting. I did economics. Then I had no idea where I wanted to go into the Big Four. So I thought, what's the most generic? I went into the audit because I knew everyone could move about and stuff. So that's how I've planned my life, which is not very well. So, but I've done okay, alhamdulillah. I was just thinking, you know, for people who are more focused and like that. So one of my mates who was definitely wanted to do economics and was studying economics at university, when we actually went around finding what is it that you can do which is specifically for economics, there is not much. There is a government program, something to do with economic advisory. There is a Big Four economic advisory thing in London where you can apply for. But I thought that was it, or at least my research went that far. So, you know, I can be very wrong and things may have changed, but that was specifically for economics. Having said that, though, at university, when you're studying economics, there's a lot that you're picking up in terms of skills and understanding an economic environment and all that kind of stuff. A lot of which is very, very, very valid for a lot of different things, especially now when I am in the advisory field and I'm kind of thinking one of the first things that when we walk into a project is think about what is the economic environment of this business? Where do they operate? What is happening in the world that impacts them? And that's, you know, specific as well as, you know, more micro and macroeconomic thing. And we are using all that as part of this. But then you're using that in every single service line, I think, probably not tax, and I'm not sure about what you do. I'm not sure about exactly how tax are going about their projects and stuff, because I've not done work in tax. But I think some of that's still applicable. Like Zahir works in transfer pricing. That's all about transfer pricing between different countries and stuff. So he needs to consider exactly what economic environment in different countries and geographies are, and what needs to happen in terms of deciding how the profits are moving about and all that kind of stuff. So I think, and sorry, this is not very specific, but I think the stuff that you're learning doing economics specifically is all very, very good, enhancing your analytics, enhancing your understanding of the world, enhancing, a lot of things that you are going to learn. All of this will be useful in whichever field that you go into. I'd say if you were to pick one and say, what it is most applicable to, I'd say it's probably the advisory side of lines, more, consulting / transaction services side of place. And then the reason for that is that's the least prescriptive service line in terms of regulated by some sort of, laws or rules or accounting standards or something like that. Most of the work that we do is based on how these things have been done and how we understand the business and what environment it operates in, rather than a certain set of rules that we go by.
Moving on to Ali, what common skills do successful applicants usually demonstrate?
So, like I said earlier, I feel like everyone's journey is different, and also in terms of the applicant. So, based on my experience working with colleagues, you have a real range of personalities and types of people. You have a real diverse nature of successful applicants. So, my advice would be to be yourself, and it doesn't matter if you're introverted, extroverted, or what your personality type is. Just being yourself and being well prepared, you will have a higher chance of being successful than if you try and fit the mold, basically. So what I'm trying to say is, like, I've had colleagues that have been very, very quiet people, but you would think, how do they get through an interview or anything? But you'd realize when you talk to them that they're just always themselves, and that is something that when it comes across to an interviewer, they're able to pick that up, and they're not going to discriminate if somebody is based on the type of person they are. So in terms of common skills, all the applicants are probably very well prepared in terms of the process. So they've done their research, they've gone and checked what type of interview questions are going to come up. They've treated the job application process like an exam, where they've prepared well on each section. So when it comes to psychometric tests, maybe they've gone and done some preparation, or they've joined a class. When they've gone for the interview, maybe they've spoken to us at GradGurus, got some tips. And then likewise, that's what basically all successful applicants, I can say, have in common, is the preparation and the dedication to getting through the process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ali. Ahmed, just a question for you on psychometric test. What tips would you give about the psychometric test? If you can just firstly kind of explain the different type of psychometric tests we have, and then
I think when I was doing the psychometric testing, and I actually think in terms of the application process, one of the areas which has changed the least is probably the psychometric testing. The difference between the big four is, I wouldn't quote me on this, but from sort of the knowledge of when I was doing it, for example, Deloitte had a logic test. So when you do your, for example, 11+ exams, for those who are based in the Northwest, for example, you have like verbal reasoning, non-verbal reasoning. Or when you do your SATs exams. So Deloitte sort of had that non-verbal, or what's called like a logic test, whereas KPMG have a big focus on maths, so they have a very difficult maths test. Generally across the big four, there's an English test, so analysing an argument, or how good are you at speaking English, because communication is very, very important. And then the other key is situational judgment tests. I think if we start off with situational judgment tests, very, very awkward psychometric test. And I think the key is actually to have a consistency in your answers. So they will say, for example, if you come in this specific situation, what would you do? And I don't think it matters as much what you would do, so much as they're looking that you have a consistent approach to each situation. Because this has been discussed by Ali and by everybody else, everybody has a different personality type. And what they're looking for is if they wanted everyone to be extroverted, you're going to have a problem working in a team. So they want one extroverted person, one introverted, one in between, one quiet, one loud, so that their teams can gel together. So the key on situation judgment test is actually to be consistent in your answers. And if you notice when you are doing your situation judgment assessments, some of the questions will be very, very similar. And I think that's generally how they're scored. If we move over to the maths test, the absolute key is to be very quick in your answers. So KPMG, when I did the assessment, had 40 questions, and I think you had maybe 15 minutes. And the best piece of advice I got was, they are not expecting you to answer every question. That there's simply not enough time. The Big Four is all about meeting deadlines, working under time pressure. All of the speakers have talked about working long hours. So you're going to be working under pressure. So the key thing with the maths test is to really work through it as quickly as you can and not spend a lot of time on each question. And then in terms of, all of the other tests, the logic tests, the English tests, I would make a similar comment, really. There are websites online. I wouldn't advise necessarily paying for websites, because there is enough websites online which gives you free versions of the tests. So if you type in, say, psychometric maths test, KPMG, you can find 8, 10, 15, 20 questions. Now, the problem is you might spend 5 minutes doing a maths question and get it right. Then you do the KPMG maths assessment and you don't pass. Because like I said, the key is really time management. So the only way really to practice that is to be really harsh on yourself. You do a practice test online, you give yourself a really short amount of time, and you sort of practice in that method. And this is why people really struggle with psychometric testing, because they're basically spending too much time. So sort of to wrap up, and apologies for the long answer, the absolute key with psychometric testing is the ability to utilize your intelligence under time pressure. There is no question on any psychometric test, if you were given 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you would not be able to answer. I mean, I'm assuming everybody here is university educated and is getting 2-1s and first classes in their degrees. And in that case, there is no question we will not be able to answer. It's all about answering those questions under time pressure. And as has been said, having the confidence and not really buckling under pressure and being nervous.
Just a question coming back to you, Bilal, given your background coming from Pakistan. So the question is, given that international students require visa sponsorship, do international students need to perform extra well? Or are there any special skills that you would look for in international students to require that substantial investment in the visa sponsorship?
The short answer is no. The assessment is exactly the same for everyone. Yes, they do require sponsorship, and that costs money a little bit, costs the firm extra money and all that kind of stuff. But all the Big Four are happy to pay this because they know exactly that they're not going to, they need the right person, and they're already investing a lot of money into finding the right people across the globe. So, it doesn't matter where you're from. If anything, actually, HR works very, very, very hard on the fact to remove that, uninformed or unintentional bias from the program, to be able to make sure that everyone's given a fair opportunity. So I think definitely, there is nothing against international students in any of the processes that I have run or been involved in. I'm pretty sure, the ones I've not been involved in, that's the same. They are looking for the right person, and where they come from and the background is almost irrelevant.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I know there's a quota or a limit on the number of international and sponsorships that firms can do. But I do know, when I was speaking to the HR staff, that they want to take as many international students as possible, but it's more a government or like an international rule that they can't take. They only have a quota or a limit on how many people they can take. But yeah, I definitely agree with your points there.
I was just going to say one more thing. So you are 100% right. There's a government limit to how many people a firm can take on or sponsor. But I mean, that's almost the same as any limit to any graduate recruitment, which is as soon as they found the right people, they will shut it down. So surely as soon as they found enough right international students or whatever, they will shut it down. Yes, there are, I think in my days, there used to be international students had to apply earlier than others as well. But in terms of the process, there is definitely no difference.
So in terms of our audience, we have quite a diversity. We have university students, but we also have a select number of college students doing A-levels. So do you have any tips for a college student who is still deciding on what university course degree to do, or whether they should go down the apprenticeship route?
I'll just give a very quick background first. I wanted to do an apprenticeship with KPMG in audit. I spoke to my economics teacher, who was an examiner for the ICAEW, and his son worked in the Big Four. And he gave me the advice to go to university first, and then I ended up working KPMG in audit. Somebody in my class, in the same class, asked the same teacher, was given the same advice I was given, but ended up doing an apprenticeship. And when I joined KPMG in 2016, he'd already been in the department for 3 years because he just didn't go to university. So at the time, I sort of thought to myself, well, I've clearly made a mistake. I should have done the apprenticeship. I've got £27,000 of debt. I mean, I didn't necessarily have it in debt, but I paid £27,000 for my degree. So that's sort of how I saw it. When I then worked with apprentices, I came across two sort of types of apprentices. The first was somebody who, at the age of 18, was mature enough to go into the world of work, and therefore not going to university, saving £27,000 was a fantastic decision. I then came across other students who were very intelligent, and that's how they managed to get into the Big Four, but they weren't mature enough to go into the world of work. They either didn't enjoy it, they didn't pass it, because what you've got to remember is you've got to break into the Big Four, as where this whole event is about. You've then got to stay in the Big Four. If you don't pass your exams, you're going to get fired very, very quickly. So a lot of these students ended up either resigning or leaving or not passing exams. So, without not giving a yes or no answer, if you are mature enough to go into the world of work at 18, I would definitely recommend avoiding university, because, like I said, I ended up in the same position as my friend Robbie Stanyland, but he just not gone to university and avoided that cost. And he had 3 years of extra experience. At the same time, I believe myself, I don't think I was ready for the world of work. So I think it was a good decision for me to go to university first. So you really need to take a hard look at yourself, speak to members of your family. You can even speak to us at GradGurus, for example, and I can, to be honest, give a very quick assessment. I mean, my younger brother, for example, went into the Big Four as an apprentice, and it didn't necessarily work out very well because he didn't have maybe that maturity. So it's not very difficult, really. You speak to family, speak to friends, speak to us at GradGurus, and we can give you a very quick assessment. But if you are mature enough, avoid the £27,000, avoid wasting 3 years on studying, for example, chemistry, which you may not utilize for the rest of your career, for example, or like French or some sort of language or whatever. At the same time, you might not be ready for the world of work. You might study chemistry, learn some useful skills, then go into the world of work, and you can pay off your student debt within a few years' time. So really it depends on you yourself. And like I did, I spoke to my economics teacher. I would try and speak to somebody who's in the Big Four, and they should be able to sort of judge you from your character, your personality, your maturity level, whether you're ready to go straight into an apprenticeship.
Can I just add one thing on here is, definitely the right answer, that you need to be mature enough, otherwise there is no way you will survive this. One other thing I wanted to say was that, having been counselor to some of the people who have joined, both grad and the other way around through apprenticeship, I think you need to be 100% sure, or at least 95% sure, that this is the career that you want when you come in. That yes, you may be very, very mature and you can handle the corporate environment and stuff. Sometimes you just join and you might get bored of accounting or whatever else. So please do talk to GradGurus or anyone else, and please make sure that if that's the route that you're taking, committing 5-6 years of your life at that point in time is not an easy decision. And yes, it's economically very beneficial, and you'll get all the support that you want, and there will be other people in the same position as you. But if you, I had no idea even when I joined university what career I wanted. I had no clue. There's no way I could have taken that decision at all at college as to join Big Four, or let alone any other company. But it is amazing. I've seen people who have performed so well and saved a lot of time and money and come through the ranks, joining through those routes. And on the other hand, I've seen people who just realized that wasn't for them, as Ahmed was saying as well. So please be sure that this is what you want to do. And if you are sure and you're definitely mature enough, then there is it's a no-brainer pretty much.
Yeah, thanks for both of you. Just to kind of add on to that as well, as a college student, you do have a couple of options to get into the Big Four. Ahmed touched on the school leaver program, but there's also, I'm not entirely sure what the name is. I think it's like a funded degree. So the Big Four have partnerships with a number of different universities, and they'll fund your degree. So accommodation and obviously your tuition fees are paid for. And I think during the summer you'll do like internships / placements. So that's a very attractive option as well, kind of almost like the best of both worlds. You get that university experience, but also financially it's quite a sound option as well.
Yeah, sorry, bro. I'll just add on a very quick point onto that, which is that the government introduced the apprenticeship levy, which is that all of the Big Four, 5%, or basically a very large sum of money. I mean, we're talking 20 or 30 million pounds has to be spent by each of the Big Four in taking on apprentices. And if they don't spend that money on apprentices, they have to pay that in tax. So if you're KPMG, you either have to pay 30 million in tax to the government, or you can employ, if you're paying apprentices, say £20,000 a year, you can employ, I don't know, a few hundred apprentices. Now, this is not advertised, but actually, you don't have to be as, the requirements to be an apprentice are less than a graduate. So, people who are getting B's at A level might have struggled with the graduate application, but actually might be accepted into the apprenticeship application. So there's even really, you could actually say it's easier to become an apprentice because of this levy, apprenticeship levy. It's actually easier to become an apprentice. Now, obviously, the sort of other side of that coin is that, if you're not, again, if you're getting B's at A level, are you going to struggle with your chartered accounting exams? Maybe, and then you might, for example, get fired. But generally speaking, there's a lot of attraction and a lot of motivation, really, to join the apprenticeship program from a number of different perspectives. To be honest, sorry to interrupt you.
Moving on to you, Ali. I just got a question coming through the chat. How do you think we can differentiate ourselves in the initial stages of the application process?
So I guess, from initial stages of the application process, I take that as the actual application form, and then the situation judgment, and then the stage after that is, if you get through those two stages, you have a telephone interview. So in terms of the actual application form, there isn't anything specific that they ask you on there. It's just a general sort of form that you fill in. Situation judgment, Ahmed covered that. I guess telephone interview. So this is an interesting one because usually it's with HR. And HR, although they conduct a lot of these interviews, I believe they have a scoring system that they have per each question. So the way I basically discovered this was that I went through an unsuccessful process through when I was doing the internship application, and I got the feedback from this. And even though I felt like I answered generally the questions well, there were a few questions where I didn't score as high as what I needed. So what you basically need to do is, for each question, you have to go as in depth as you can. I won't say in depth as you can, that might not be the right word, but you have to answer that as if it's the only question you're going to answer, because it's all scored individually. You might have 10 questions and answer 5 really well and 5 poorly, versus someone that answers all 10 consistently and they'll score higher than you would. So even if you give fantastic answers on that 1 or 2 questions, you have to have it across the whole board. So that's what I basically discovered. And generally, telephone interview, there's some tips that you can get off. Well, my tip would be always stand up when you're doing the interview, because when you stand up, your voice projects better. And then, just generally have your notes in front of you and do practice. So keep practicing. And I guess for the initial stage of the process, that's basically what I would say.
Moving on to you, Bilal, I got a question related to data analytics. So obviously, given that your initial field was starting point was in audit, and you moved on and transitioned into transactional services, how do the Big Four or EY specifically use data analytics?
I was the data analytics champion for my team in Manchester in transaction services, and I am now launching in the restructuring team as well. As I've moved across into the secondment, that is definitely, if not the biggest, one of the biggest things that's happening in our profession. Is how to handle data quickly, better. Give more insights to our client. What do I think? Every firm, Big Four or non-Big Four, is investing in this. A lot of firms collected a lot of data, but maybe weren't as good as in using all of that. A lot of investment is going in across the industry into making sure that that happens. There's data analytics teams which have been set up across all firms to be able to do that on more complicated scenarios. EY's approach has been that they've actually trained every person up in advisory to be able to use all the tools that they've developed internally, as well as more external tools. We in our team use that pretty much on every other project, or every third project at least now. And we are 2 or 2.5 years into it and still not where it should be. So that is definitely the big thing. The future, everyone needs to be trained up on it. What do we exactly do? We use softwares like Alteryx, Tableau, Spotfire, Power BI, SQL, whatever works basically to be able to do that. Our preference is normally Alteryx and Power BI. We've got internal AI stuff that EY has developed for themselves to be able to do some clever things, which I probably wouldn't go into the details of, which helps us during day to day. But it's all about automation. It's all about making sure people are up to speed on that. And all of us in the profession are expected to use that, or we will be left behind. So that's definitely the future.
A final question, which I'll pose to Ali. Have any permanent changes been made to the recruitment process due to the pandemic?
From my brief understanding of this, I guess obviously there isn't any in-person assessment centres going on at the moment. There is more video interviews being utilised. And I guess, so that's another element that's been added in, is the video interview. I actually did a video interview for my Lloyd's internship 5 years ago now, maybe longer actually. And that's another element that it's good to prepare for. The benefit you have here is they usually give you, like, if it's recorded, like 10 to 15 seconds between each question, or maybe a little bit longer. So you can jot down your notes, utilize your notes. People, I mean, in presentations nowadays, everything is through Zoom. So I know everybody has the presentation notes on screen, even no matter what level they're at. So the video interview is the new element. I don't know, Bilal, if you have anything from any insight from inside the Big Four about how they're changing the recruitment process due to the pandemic.
Yeah, I'll just have to apologize because I'm not really involved in graduate recruitment anymore. And as I said, I only do experienced hires. So I not very close to that, but I'm pretty sure they've done a workaround on all of these to be able to make sure everything is now on videos. One thing I do know of is that one of the things that we were very, very worried about was people who were joining us this year, and how we gonna involve them as part of the team and train them and everything else, because when you sat in the office, it's much easier. It's not. So the huge amount of effort has gone into making sure that as far as possible, this virtual world is working for everyone, and they're connected and they're getting what they need and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, sorry, not sure about exact specifics of graduate recruitment. But on experienced hire, we are doing video interviews and hiring people as and when required.
Thanks for that, everyone. Before we wrap up, I'll just hand over to Ali for a couple of concluding remarks.
As this is our first event, obviously, we've set this up with basically 2 weeks notice. We know we can obviously do we want to obviously improve and cater more towards what you'd want. So definitely any feedback would be appreciated. Like I said, we're ready and live. So if you have any applications ongoing now, you can get in touch with us, and we'd be able to support you through that at whatever stage you're in. Please let your friends and anyone else know about us, and like if anyone else that that might be able to benefit from this help, it'd be great, because we're trying to reach as many people as we can. I've just had a question come through that said, what inspired you all to come together and do this? From my side, I sort of felt like the universities don't give you enough support when it comes to getting into a professional career. I sort of feel like I was an average student as well. From my side, it wasn't about, there's a lot of myths and like stuff that you need to be perfect to get into a Big Four or a good company. I don't really think that's true. I just think you need to be really well prepared. And I feel like we have the answers to help people through the process. That's what sort of helped us to sort of come together and put this together. And I guess another part is, like, I'm passionate about creating a network of successful professionals. So where we go and help you in the process, then you'll also go on and be able to help somebody else, and then we'll have like a domino effect where there's a community of professionals and students that are connected and able to help each other progress through the application process and then further that into a career. So that's where hopefully once we get live and we're able to go back into having in-person events, we can host some really cool networking events where you can get to meet people from different companies, not just the big four. It could be like other financial services companies, startups. And so you can really learn about what is out there for you and build those relationships that will help you basically exceed and fulfill whatever you want in your career. So I guess that's really the inspiration behind GradGurus. In terms of what we have coming up, we plan to continue doing these Breaking Into series over the coming months during the pandemic. We also want to, we'll have some specific workshops, such as demystifying psychometric tests. We might even have some sort of like a 6-week course or a 4-week course where we're doing like classes with you guys. On top of that, we're offering one-to-one mentoring. So if you want to reach out, we can connect you with either one of us or one of our volunteers who's able to dedicate some time to help you through a process. And on top of that, there's just general interview and application support. If anyone wants to also have their CV reviewed, that's something that we've got coming up soon. So I know we're sharing quite a bit of information here, but as you've made it to the end of the webinar, I feel it's only right to share some of the insights of what we have coming up. So definitely watch the space, and thank you all for taking time out on your Saturday evenings. But yeah, if there's anything anyone else on the GradGurus team wants to add, let me know. If not, then
just wanted to reach out and say thank you to all our speakers, obviously Bilal, Mohammed, and Zahia. It was really good to pick your brains, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to share some of your experiences and wisdom.
Yeah, it's not a problem at all. And I was just going to say one last thing, which is, these guys are doing an absolute great job and taking a lot of time out of their lives to be able to help other people. And there is no better way to learn about, doing better at the application process and getting through all of this than people who have been through and are actually in the world of or the professional services that you guys want to get into. So please do advertise and do use them. And I think GradGurus is all about, giving people that opportunity of development that maybe they otherwise will not have. So please, A, use them, and B, make sure that you tell other people who can use them as well, because these sort of initiatives are very rare to come across and something that people can benefit a lot from.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Bilal.
Yeah, and then just finally, communication channels. So we have the website, which will have which will list out future events. We have the email, which we aim to get back to any emails within 24 hours. You can WhatsApp us on a dedicated GradGurus mobile number, and also Instagram GradGurus. We're very active on all of these communication channels. So yeah, definitely get in touch with us. And yeah, we're basically 100% live and ready for any questions, any sort of way we can help you.